Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive into the world of business books.
Yes.
This time, we're cracking open Charles Duhigg's The Power of Habit.
Oh, a good one.
It's a book that explores the science behind why we do what we do and how those automatic behaviors shape everything from our personal lives to the success of massive corporations.
Yeah, it's fascinating how much of our lives is actually governed by these unconscious patterns,
Right.
these automatic processes that run in the background without us even realizing it.
And Duhigg brings that point home with some really compelling examples.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
Like, remember the story about Lisa?
Oh, yeah.
She completely transformed her life,
Okay.
went from smoker and in debt to successful graphic designer runner, the whole 9 yards.
Wow.
And it all started by changing just one key habit, smoking.
It's a perfect example of what Duhigg calls keystone habits.
Okay.
Those pivotal habits that can have a ripple effect,
Right.
influencing other routines and behaviors in your life.
Like Dominic.
Yeah, exactly. Like breaking the smoking habit led Lisa to start exercising, eating better, managing her finances more responsibly.
Yeah.
It created this cascade of positive change.
So you knock over one key habit, and then a bunch of others start to fall in line.
Exactly.
But how does this actually work?
Well,
What's going on in our brains that makes these habits so powerful?
there's a neurological basis for all of this. Our brains are wired to conserve mental effort.
Okay.
So as we learn and repeat actions, our brain activity actually changes, forming these neural pathways that allow us to perform those actions almost automatically.
And I think I read about a study where they observed this happening in rats running through a maze.
Exactly. At first, the rats' brains were firing like crazy as they tried to figure out the route.
Right.
But as they learned the maze and it became a habit, their brain activity decreased significantly.
Wow.
They were essentially running on autopilot, guided by that ingrained neural pathway.
So if like 40% of our daily actions are just habits playing out on autopilot, how do these habits even form in the first place?
Duhigg breaks it down into a simple but powerful framework
Okay.
called the habit loop.
Okay.
It's a 3-part cycle that starts with a cue,
Okay.
which triggers a routine,
Uh-huh.
which then leads to a reward.
Okay.
And it's that reward that reinforces the habit,
Right.
making it more likely to be repeated.
So let's use that rat experiment as an example.
Okay.
What would be the cue, the routine, and the reward?
Think of it this way. The cue for the rats was likely the click they heard at the beginning of the maze.
Okay.
The routine was navigating the maze itself.
Uh-huh.
And the reward, of course, was the chocolate waiting for them at the end.
So they get a little treat.
Yeah.
And that spike in brain activity they observed at the beginning and end of the maze, that really highlights how important those cues and rewards are.
Exactly. They drive the entire habit loop.
Yeah.
And this isn't just limited to rats and mazes. We can see it everywhere in our own lives.
Right.
Like those late night snack cravings.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
The cue might be something like feeling stressed after a long day.
Right.
Or maybe even just seeing a commercial for your favorite snack.
Oh, man, that gets me every time.
The routine is heading to the kitchen and grabbing that bag of chips.
Yep.
And the reward is that temporary feeling of comfort and satisfaction you get from indulging.
Right.
But here's the thing. These habits can form even when we don't consciously intend for them to.
Right.
You might think, oh, it's just one time.
Yeah.
But before you know it, you're caught in a habit loop, reaching for those chips more often than you'd like.
So those cues and rewards, they're crucial for building habits. But is there something else that kind of solidifies those habits in place?
Well, Duhigg argues that cravings are the secret ingredient that cements those habits into place.
Cravings.
He uses the example of Pepsodent toothpaste,
Okay.
which, believe it or not, wasn't always a staple in everyone's bathroom.
Really?
People weren't really into brushing their teeth regularly back in the day.
I can't even imagine.
So Pepsodent's creator, Claude Hopkins, needed to figure out how to make people want to brush.
Right.
He realized that people craved that tingly, clean feeling they got after brushing with Pepsodent,
Okay.
which contains certain ingredients that cause this sensation. So by tapping into that craving, he turned brushing into a daily ritual for millions.
So if you understand what people are craving, you can potentially design habits or even products
Yeah,
around those desires.
absolutely.
That Pepsodent story is fascinating. But what about changing habits that are a lot harder to break? You know, where the cravings are really strong.
That's where the power of belief and community comes into play.
Okay.
Duhigg highlights Alcoholics Anonymous as a prime example. They've helped countless people overcome alcoholism by leveraging the power of community to create new routines and reinforce belief.
So it's like they provide an alternative reward system
Right.
and a sense of belonging replacing the reward of alcohol with the reward of connection and support.
Exactly, instead of reaching for a drink. AA members have meetings, sponsors a whole network to help them through those tough moments.
Was there hacking the habit loop?
Essentially, yes,
Yeah.
by changing the reward and providing a support system that strengthens their belief in their ability to change.
This is all super fascinating, but I'm also curious about how these principles apply beyond personal habits.
Sure.
What about the habits of entire organizations? Does Duhigg delve into that at all?
Absolutely. He uses some compelling case studies like Alcoa, the aluminum giant.
Okay.
When Paul O'Neill became CEO, he focused on worker safety as his top priority, a move that surprised a lot of people.
Yeah.
He believed that making Alcoa the safest company in the world would be a keystone habit,
Right.
leading to positive changes across the board.
Focusing on safety is a noble goal,
Yeah.
but did it actually impact the company's performance?
Here's where it gets interesting. This focus on safety didn't just reduce accidents, it also led to a significant increase in productivity and quality.
Really?
It turns out that prioritizing safety triggered a ripple effect. Changing other routines and processes throughout the organization, workers started communicating better, paying more attention to detail, and taking ownership of their work.
Wow.
It's a great example of how seemingly small changes, like focusing on one key habit, can lead to a dramatic transformation.
It's like that domino effect. Again, just on a company-wide scale.
Exactly.
And speaking of domino effects, Duhigg also talks about the power of small wins, right?
Yes.
Like how even minor achievements can contribute to larger habit change.
Precisely. He uses the example of Michael Phelps and his incredible success as a swimmer.
Oh, yeah.
His coach, Bob Bowman, instilled these keystone habits in him, like rigorous mental rehearsal,
Right.
which paved the way for consistent victories.
And didn't Phelps win a race even though his goggles were leaking?
Yes, in the 2008 Olympics, his goggles filled with water during a crucial race. But he didn't panic.
Wow.
He'd mentally rehearsed this scenario so many times that he knew exactly how many strokes it would take to finish, even without being able to see clearly. He ended up winning the gold medal.
That's incredible. So what does this all mean for our listeners who are trying to change their own habits?
Well,
How do we take all this knowledge about habit loops, keystone habits, and the power of belief and apply it to our lives?
the key takeaway is that understanding your own habit loops, those cues, routines, and rewards,
Right.
is the first step to making lasting changes. So it's all about identifying those cues that trigger those unwanted behaviors
Right.
and the rewards that are reinforcing them.
Right.
And then figuring out if we can find healthier routines that will deliver similar rewards.
So swap out the bad routine with the good routine, but keep the reward.
Right. And it's also about recognizing the power of belief and community in supporting those changes.
Community.
Just like those AA members who find strength in each other,
Right.
we can all benefit from finding supportive environments and people who believe in our ability to change.
And it's not just about breaking bad habits. It's about building good ones, too.
Absolutely.
Like those keystone habits we were talking about.
Yeah.
Those small but significant behaviors that can have a ripple effect,
Right.
creating positive changes in multiple areas of our lives.
Think about establishing a regular exercise routine,
Yeah.
a daily meditation practice, even just making your bed every morning.
Okay.
Those small wins can create a sense of momentum and make it easier to stick to those new habits.
Right.
It's about building that positive feedback loop where small successes fuel our motivation and reinforce our belief in our ability to change.
I love that it's about recognizing the power of even the smallest actions
Yeah.
to create positive change.
Absolutely.
But I'm also curious about something else Duhigg talks about in the book.
Sure.
The idea that organizations can have habits too.
Right. It's not just individuals who get stuck in those routines and patterns.
Yeah, how does that work?
Well, he uses the example of the 1986 King's Crossfire in London,
Oh,
a devastating event that tragically claimed the lives of 31 people.
I remember reading about that fire.
And what's particularly chilling about this event is that there were multiple opportunities to contain the fire
Okay.
before it became uncontrollable. But a series of organizational habits and bureaucratic barriers prevented those opportunities from being seized.
So it started small, right?
It started on a wooden escalator, but quickly escalated into a massive inferno.
Wow. It's hard to believe something like that could happen in a modern city like London.
It's a stark reminder that even in well-established systems, ingrained habits can create blind spots and make it difficult to adapt to unexpected situations.
So in the case of the King's Crossfire, were there any preventative measures in place?
There were sprinkler systems in place, but no one knew how to use them because they were controlled by a different department.
So there was a lack of communication and coordination.
Exactly. And in the aftermath of the fire,
Yeah.
a massive investigation revealed those deeply flawed organizational habits.
Right.
And led to a complete overhaul of the London Underground safety procedures.
So tragic lesson learned, but it really does underscore the importance of constantly evaluating and adapting organizational habits to make sure they're serving their intended purpose, and most importantly, keeping people safe.
Exactly.
It's a powerful reminder that even organizations need to be mindful of their habits and make changes when those habits are no longer serving them well. And speaking of mindfulness, Duhigg also explores this fascinating and somewhat unsettling idea of how companies can predict and even manipulate our habits, right? I mean, it's definitely relevant to the power of habit in today's world.
He uses the example of Target and their efforts to identify pregnant shoppers.
Okay.
Even before those shoppers might be ready to announce their pregnancies.
I mean, how does that even work? Does Target have some secret spy program or something?
It's not about spies, it's about data.
Okay.
Target realized that by tracking shoppers' purchases, they could identify patterns that indicated a high probability of pregnancy. For example, if a woman suddenly starts buying unscented lotion vitamins and larger quantities of certain food items, it could suggest that she's expecting.
So they're looking for those subtle shifts in purchasing behavior.
Yeah.
These little clues that might reveal a life change before the shopper explicitly tells them.
Exactly. And once they identify these likely pregnant shoppers, they can start sending them targeted ads and coupons for baby products.
Oh, wow.
It's a marketing strategy that leverages data and predictive analytics to anticipate customer needs and influence their purchasing decisions.
Right.
It's certainly effective, but it raises ethical questions about privacy and data collection.
Yeah, it makes you think twice about all those loyalty programs and data tracking that's happening behind the scenes.
For sure.
But Duhigg isn't just pointing out the potential downsides of these insights into our habits.
No.
He's also arguing that we can use this knowledge to our advantage.
Right.
Like, understanding our own habit loops can empower us to make positive changes.
Precisely, he's not saying all habits are bad or that all companies are out to manipulate us.
Right.
He's urging us to be more mindful of the underlying mechanisms that drive our behavior.
Okay.
And to make deliberate choices about the habits we cultivate in our lives.
Right.
For organizations, it's about using this understanding of habits to create positive change, whether it's for their employees, customers, or society as a whole.
It's a call for greater awareness, intentionality, and responsibility in shaping the behaviors that ultimately shape our world.
And speaking of shaping behavior, there's one final concept from the book I think we should explore before we wrap things up.
Okay, what's that?
The idea that willpower itself can be strengthened like a muscle.
Okay.
This has some interesting implications for habit change.
The willpower muscle idea. Okay, so how do we flex it and make it stronger?
Well, Duhigg draws on research suggesting that willpower is a finite resource, one that can get depleted throughout the day as we make decisions and resist temptations. But like any muscle, it can be strengthened through practice and exercise.
So it's not that some people have willpower and others don't.
Right.
It's that we can all develop and strengthen our willpower over time.
Exactly.
That's actually a very empowering idea.
Absolutely. And Duhigg highlights a few strategies for building willpower.
Okay, like what?
One is setting clear goals and intentions.
Okay.
He uses the example of patients in Scotland who recovered more quickly from surgery after writing down their rehab plans.
Interesting.
Having a clear roadmap for your desired behavior makes it easier to stick to it when your willpower starts to waver.
It's like having that internal compass guiding you, even when things get tough.
Exactly. And another key strategy is creating supportive environments that make it easier to resist temptation.
Right.
Duhigg uses the example of Starbucks and their comprehensive training program.
Okay.
That helps employees develop willpower and self-discipline.
So they've created a system of routines and rituals. That makes it easier for their employees to consistently deliver exceptional customer service.
Right. It's a great example of how companies can create structures and systems that support good habits and make it easier for their employees to make positive choices.
And it highlights the importance of thinking about willpower, not just as an individual trait, but as something that can be cultivated and strengthened
Absolutely.
through organizational culture and practices.
It's an inspiring idea.
Yeah.
And it reminds us that we're not just passive victims of our habits. We have the power to change them,
Right.
to strengthen our willpower, and to create environments that support the behaviors we want to cultivate.
So we're not just robots blindly following these pre-programmed routines.
Exactly. And the power of habit gives us the knowledge and tools to understand and change those routines.
Right.
To become the architects of our own lives, one habit at a time.
And those individual changes, those shifts in habits, they can have a ripple effect impacting not just our own lives,
Yeah.
but the organizations and communities around us.
It's like that butterfly effect.
Yeah, one small change can set off a chain reaction, creating a cascade of positive consequences.
Exactly.
So as we wrap up our exploration of the power of habit,
Right.
what are some key takeaways for our listeners?
Well,
What can they do to harness the power of habit in their own lives?
first and foremost, it's about understanding those habit loops.
Okay.
Identifying the cues, routines, and rewards that drive those automatic behaviors.
Right.
Once you've mapped out those patterns, you can start experimenting with different routines,
Okay.
finding healthier and more productive ways to satisfy those cravings.
So it's about disrupting those automatic responses
Yeah.
and making conscious choices about the behaviors we want to cultivate.
Right.
And remember, belief plays a crucial role in this process.
Absolutely.
Whether it's the support of a community, the inspiration of a leader, or simply our own internal conviction.
Yeah,
Believing that change is possible is essential for making it a reality.
it really is. And don't forget the power of small wins.
Wow.
You don't have to overhaul your entire life overnight. Small steps.
Start with one small change, one keystone habit, and build from there.
Right.
Those small victories can create a sense of momentum and make it easier to stick with those new habits.
It's about creating that positive feedback loop where each small success fuels our motivation
Yeah.
and reinforces our commitment to change.
And remember, change takes time and effort.
Yeah, it's a process.
There will be setbacks along the way.
Right.
But by understanding the science of habit formation, we can approach those challenges with greater awareness and a more strategic plan for success. It's a journey, not a destination.
It's all about the journey. And as we conclude this deep dive, we want to say thank you to all of you for tuning in to another episode of Business Book Breakdowns.
We appreciate you joining us on this exploration of the power of habit.
If you enjoy this type of content and want to hear more deep dives into the world of business books,
Yeah.
be sure to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel.
We really appreciate your support.
Yeah, your support means the world to us and helps us keep bringing you quality content. And if you found this review helpful and want to explore the book further,
Yes.
you can purchase it using the Amazon link in the description.
You got it.
Purchasing through our link provides us with a small commission,
Yes.
which helps us continue creating content you'll love.
Absolutely. Until next time.
Keep those habit loops spinning in the right direction.
See that?